let us really look at the terrifying situation unfolding in the Virgin Islands. Britt and Rocco have been running on borrowed time, and we all knew it deep down in our guts. Britt is already battling a devastating illness, her physical strength fading by the hour without her proper medication. She has been trying so hard to protect Rocco, constantly urging him to grab his passport and leave her behind to save himself. But Rocco, bless his loyal heart, is fiercely protective. He absolutely refuses to abandon her in her time of need. This deep, almost maternal bond they have formed is exactly what makes the impending tragedy so utterly devastating to witness. Ross has finally tracked them down. We knew this dirty agent would not just let them slip away into the sunset. He is a man with a dangerous hidden agenda, a man who has already shown he will cross any moral line to get exactly what he wants. And right now, what he desperately wants is to tie up his loose ends and permanently silence both Britt and Rocco. When Ross finally kicks down that wooden door, the sheer terror in that room is going to be absolutely suffocating. Imagine the scene, guys. A sick, exhausted Britt and a terrified teenager, completely cornered by a highly trained killer with absolutely nothing to lose. Ross is not there to negotiate a deal or listen to reason. He is there to execute a cold, calculated murder to protect his own secrets. He looks at them not as human beings with families who love them, but as mere obstacles in his grand manipulative scheme. He raises his weapon, fully intending to end their lives, right there in that rundown, isolated cabin. The desperation in the air will be palpable, thick enough to cut with a knife. Rocco is just a boy, and Britt knows with absolute certainty that she is the only line of defense between this ruthless monster and the teenager she has sworn to protect. This is the exact moment where the story takes a massive turn that will leave us all gasping for air. Britt, who has always been so incredibly proud, so defiant, and so fiercely independent, does the unthinkable. She swallows every ounce of her pride, drops to her knees, and begs for mercy. She pleads with Ross, tears streaming down her face, begging him not to target her. Now, if you ask me, Ross is a deeply sadistic man who thoroughly enjoys the power he holds over his helpless victims. He pauses, his dark curiosity suddenly piqued. Why is the notoriously tough, unbreakable Britt suddenly pleading for her life? He demands to know the exact reason behind her sudden surrender. And that is when Britt drops the absolute bombshell that will change the course of history for a legacy family forever. With a trembling voice, she confesses the fragile, beautiful secret she has been carrying. She reveals that she is pregnant. Let us pause and truly process the massive weight of this revelation, ladies. Britt is pregnant. She has just found out that she is carrying a child. And if we connect the dots, if we look back at the timeline, the stolen glances, and the whispered secrets, there is only one man who could possibly be the father of this baby. Jason. Yes, guys, I am talking about Jason. The timing aligns perfectly with their complicated history. This is not just any baby, this is a child conceived in a moment of desperate passion, a beautiful symbol of hope in a life that has been filled with so much darkness, illness, and tragedy. For Britt, who genuinely thought her future was completely stolen by her devastating medical diagnosis, this baby represents a miracle. It is a tiny, flickering light of hope in her dark world. But revealing this precious secret to a monster like Ross, that is exactly like throwing a piece of raw meat to a starving, rabid wolf. You would logically think that a pregnancy announcement might soften a villain, maybe buy the victim some crucial time to formulate an escape plan. But Ross is not a normal, rational man. When he hears this confession, his reaction is not one of mercy or hesitation. It is absolute, unadulterated fury. Why? Because Ross thrives on total control, and this new, unexpected variable completely infuriates him. It complicates his neat little assassination plan. However, he quickly realizes he can use this situation to inflict maximum psychological torture on his victims. He looks down at Britt, who is trembling and vulnerable on the floor, and he devises the most twisted, manipulative scheme imaginable. He gives her a choice, an impossible, soul-crushing ultimatum that no woman should ever have to face. He tells her that if she wants to keep herself and Rocco alive today, she must willingly terminate the pregnancy. He demands that she sacrifice her unborn child to buy their survival. Can you even begin to fathom the intense psychological torment Britt is subjected to in that agonizing moment? She is violently forced into a corner where there is absolutely no right answer. If she bravely refuses his demand, Ross will simply pull the trigger, instantly killing her, the innocent baby growing inside her, and young Rocco. If she desperately agrees to his sick terms, she loses the miracle child she just discovered she was carrying, the last physical connection she has to the man she loves, Jason. She cannot save both the baby and Rocco. It is a horrific, vicious cycle of impending loss and grief, and the writers are cruelly pushing Britt to the absolute brink of human endurance. As mothers, as grandmothers, as women who have watched the trials and tribulations of this show for decades, our collective hearts are completely shattering just thinking about the sheer agony tearing through Britt's mind. But we all know Britt is a fierce fighter. She is not going to just meekly submit to this unholy alliance of cruel fate and a madman's demands. In a split second of pure, reckless adrenaline and maternal instinct, she makes her desperate move. She suddenly lunges at Ross, hoping against hope to catch him off guard, hoping to disarm him or at least buy Rocco a few precious seconds to run out the back door. But Ross is a highly trained operative, a man who is always on high alert for an ambush. He easily anticipates her wild strike and violently counters her attack without a second thought. The physical struggle is incredibly brief but horrifyingly brutal. Ross shoves her backward with terrifying, unforgiving force. Britt loses her footing on the uneven floorboards, stumbling backward, and she falls hard. The impact is sickening to watch. In that one devastating, heart-stopping moment, as she hits the ground in agony, the absolute worst possible outcome becomes a tragic reality. She loses the baby. Now, let us deeply analyze the incredible domino effect this will cause, because this one tragic fall is going to trigger a massive shockwave that will completely decimate the entire town. Let us start with the first, most explosive domino, Jason. Right now, as we speak, Jason is sitting in a cold, lonely jail cell, having heroically sacrificed his own freedom to cover up the fact that Rocco was the one who actually shot Ross. He thinks he is doing the honorable thing, protecting the innocent youth of his family. But what on earth happens when the devastating news reaches him behind bars? What happens when Jason finds out that the woman he deeply loves was cornered by the very man he is currently covering for, and that she violently lost their unborn child in a physical altercation? I will tell you exactly what happens. The stoic, tightly controlled Jason we all know will instantly vanish. He will become an absolute force of lethal, unstoppable vengeance. He will break out of that prison facility, and he will hunt Ross down like an animal. There will be no trial, no mercy, just pure, unadulterated bloodshed. Jason will willingly throw his entire life and freedom away to violently avenge his murdered child. And what about the second falling domino? Rocco? This poor, deeply traumatized boy will have had a front row seat to this entire waking nightmare. He will watch Britt bravely fight for him, he will hear her tearfully reveal the secret pregnancy, and he will witness the brutal, violent fall that ends that innocent life. The severe psychological damage this event will inflict on Rocco is completely incomprehensible. He will carry the crushing, suffocating weight of survivor's guilt for the rest of his natural life. He will believe, deep down in his heart of hearts, that Britt lost her precious baby solely because she was desperately trying to protect him from a bullet. This horrific trauma will send Rocco spiraling down into a dark, vicious cycle of intense self-hatred, rebellion, and reckless behavior. He is already holding the dark secret of shooting Ross. Adding the tragic death of Jason's baby to his heavy conscience will completely and utterly break his fragile mind. The third heavy domino falls squarely on the shoulders of the parents. Dante and Lulu are currently desperately rushing to the Virgin Islands, praying they can save their beloved son. But they are going to arrive far too late to stop the bloodshed. Imagine the sheer horror of Dante and Lulu bursting into that island cabin, only to find a deeply traumatized, catatonic Rocco and a bleeding, broken, sobbing Britt on the floor. The overwhelming guilt of failing to protect their child, of being agonizingly steps behind the danger, will severely fracture their newly repaired relationship. Lulu will harshly blame herself for confiding in the wrong people and letting secrets slip, while Dante will angrily blame his own police instincts for not acting faster to secure the perimeter. The very foundation of their family unit will violently crack under the immense, unbearable weight of this shared tragedy. They will look at the shattered pieces of their son's lost innocence and tragically realize that their legacy family is forever tainted by this island nightmare. Then we have the fourth massive domino, which will violently ripple through the power players and criminal underworld of our town. Carly is already heavily involved in the chaotic mess at the estate, frantically plotting her own risky rescue missions. When Jason inevitably goes completely off the rails with grief, Carly will inevitably be dragged right into the bloody crossfire. You know Carly. She will do absolutely whatever it takes to fiercely protect Jason, even if it means forming an unholy alliance with the darkest, most dangerous elements of the criminal underworld to cover his bloody tracks. She will recklessly risk her own life, her hard-won freedom, and her family's safety to help Jason bury Ross once and for all. This single, tragic event in a cabin will ignite a massive mob war and a relentless manhunt the likes of which our screens have never seen before. Finally, we must look at the deeply tragic fate of Britt herself, the woman at the center of this storm. If she somehow survives this severe physical trauma and the immediate threat of Ross, how on earth does she survive the profound emotional devastation that follows? She is already facing a terrifying ticking clock with her incurable illness diagnosis. This unexpected baby was a beautiful glimmer of light in an otherwise terrifyingly dark tunnel of medical uncertainty. Having that singular light violently extinguished by a cruel monster like Ross might just be the final, crushing blow that permanently breaks her fighting spirit. Will she even want to keep fighting her debilitating illness after losing Jason's child? Or will she simply surrender to the overwhelming darkness, feeling that she has absolutely nothing left to live for in this cruel world? The writers are taking her down a path of unimaginable sorrow, and I deeply fear that the strong, sarcastic Britt we know and love will never, ever be the same again. So, my dear friends, as we collectively brace ourselves for the highly emotional episodes ahead, we must prepare for the absolute worst-case scenario. Ross is not just threatening two physical lives in that isolated cabin. He is maliciously setting a lit match to a massive powder keg that will violently blow up the lives of Jason, Rocco, Dante, Lulu, and Carly. The dominoes are perfectly lined up, and the exact second Britt hits that unforgiving floor, they will all come crashing down in a spectacular, heartbreaking display of tragedy and vengeance. This is exactly the kind of gripping, devastating storytelling that leaves a permanent mark on soap opera history and keeps us talking for decades. The only lingering question left to ask is, when Jason finally catches up to Ross to exact his revenge, will there be enough of the villain left to even identify, or will the fiery wrath of a grieving father burn the entire town to the very ground?